Well, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only James Williams Dog Waters, and I'm back in the building. And we are watching the battle of the United States of America, the resurgence of the United States of America against the creatures of Jekyll Island. Now, if you've been following me, you've been watching the content, you know that I tend to dig deeper into things than just reading the news, because unfortunately, it seems as if the average individual who covers events like breaking news, they only care to break the news just to get you some news. Like, oh, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell tries to argue with Trump when confronted on the cost of Fed renovation. Why? And they'll play the video, which the video of Donald and Jerome Powell interacting is very interesting when you look at the body language. I mean, it's extremely interesting. It's almost as if, it's not almost as if, Donald went there and said, okay, you playing games, I'm finna come punk you personally. Remember, they've been tweeting at each other. Donald saying lower the interest rates. Fed Powell saying he's not going to lower the interest rates. Donald saying, now I'm about to come see you, Jack. But that's one element, one aspect of it. I remember watching videos years ago with people talking about the creature from Jekyll Island and how, the Federal Reserve Bank and the Federal Reserve banks of the world and the World Bank are controlling all our money. But when you see the battle, the warfare to take it down, nobody talks about the real war. It's just a news blur. Yeah, everybody want to talk about Ed Griffin and his work on the creature of Jekyll Island. But when the creature is getting busted in the mouth, when the creature is getting his dreadlocks pulled and twisted and poked in the eye, nobody won't say that we beating up the creature. And they don't want to say it because they don't like who doing the beating of the creature. Yeah. Let's go into this. President Trump on Thursday toured the Federal Reserve headquarters renovations, which have ballooned over $1 billion over budget. Powell is under fire for the cost of renovation, the Fed D.C. headquarters. The cost ballooned from $1.9 billion to $2.5 billion. He currently also faces criminal referral to the Department of Justice from Congresswoman Ana Paula Luna with the beautiful behind. Trump announced earlier that he was joined by Senator Tim Scott, Senator Tom Tillis, OMB Director Ross Vaught, Chairman of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac Bill Plute, my appointees to the National Capital Planning Commission, James Blair and Will Scarf, and various other construction professionals. So he came to come chin check this man. Watch this. Here's this tweet. Getting ready to head over to the Fed to look at their now $3.1 billion plus construction project. Also present will be Fed Chair Jerome Powell and all the rest of these people. Right? So he letting everybody know he going now. So Donald get there. And then, I don't know if this is the whole interaction. Let me see how long. This is not the interaction I want you to see. Hold on. I want you to see the whole interaction between the two of them. And then we're going to swing over and we're going to go back and we're going to look at what they said about this creature on Jekyll Island. And I want you to understand something. This is Donald telling this Fed chairman, bro, you're going to do what I say do or you're going to get ghost. This is leverage being laid out in front of you. Hold on. Wait a minute. Let me put a little bit of good video in. All right, I'm back. Here we go. Now, I just want to rewind this just a little bit. This is them on their little tour. And we're going to start with this. There's Tim Scott. Y'all know that man in the middle with the pink tie, that's Donald. And that man on the right-hand side is Jerome Powell. So the cameras come. They've been doing their tour. The moment come to talk to the cameras. And I want you to watch what Jerome Powell does. Because he know what's coming down the pipeline. He said, I'm going to go skirt over here in the corner. But no, you're not going to get a chance to skirt like you want to. Yeah. And then we're going to watch this interaction. Because you got to understand, the creature of John Jekyll Island ain't never really been challenged. So it's not like the creature know how to fight. It don't know how to fight. It ain't never been challenged. Period. It hasn't had to fight. It hasn't had to try and survive. No, I'm the creature. How dare you come over here and check me? I'm the creature of Jekyll Island. Do you not know how I got here? Yeah.
I think we hear the president. Let's tune in.
With the chairman, as you know. Chairman, come on over. And we're just taking a look at what's happening. And it's a tough construction job. They're building basements where they didn't exist or expanding them, and a lot of very expensive work. There's no question about it. And Tim has been with me for a long time, and you're in charge of the committee.
Indeed. One of the reasons why we wanted to see it was the overruns of the expenses. We wanted to figure out why.
Yeah. So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about $3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
Now, you saw that look on his face? He said that 2.7 is now 3.1. He's like, but he ain't going to say much. See, this Donald put pressure on that. Now, I want you to remember, Fed Jerome Powell went before Congress and said, now this whole expansion is built for bankers, like their little playhouse for bankers. And he said he wasn't doing nothing for the bankers. And he said he wasn't doing no expansion for the bankers. And so this is all about taking down Jerome Powell. But you got to tie the pieces to the puzzle in together. Remember, they brought him before. The matter of fact, no, let me not just make you remember. Let me show you, because that's my job. I found an even better source to go to. The one and only Roger Stone. And I'm going to say this. As my days as a political operative, Roger Stone was like my digital mentor. Okay, well, nobody say I love me some Roger Stone. Roger Stone is cold-blooded. For real. He's the Rick James of political consultants. What did the five-faced finger say to the face? Smack. He's the Rick James of political consultants. And I need you to make the tie-in together what's going on. Why is Donald at the Federal Reserve? Why did he go? Oh, because he's putting pressure on Jerome Powell. Therefore, if he's putting pressure on Jerome Powell, what is he putting pressure on? The creature, baby, of Jekyll Island. The creature, the one and only giant octopus with his hands all inside of everything, and you're missing it. It's right in front of your face, and I'm here to show it to you, baby. Yeah.
It's just breaking now. There's some new news coming forward regarding Jerome Powell and some of his plans over at the Federal Reserve. Can you give us an update?
Yeah, Jack, you're exactly right. I mean, Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve were anxious to cut rates in the fall before the last election when the inflation rate was actually higher than it is today. So the idea that they won't cut rates now because they're concerned about inflation is a bogus argument. They were willing to cut rates to try to help Joe Biden get reelected. Of course, that didn't work out so well. Now, by the two measures that the Fed uses, the employment rate and the inflation rate, both of which were significantly lower the last time they cut cut interest rates, would indicate that we need a rate cut. In the meantime, however, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, testified to Congress about the $2.4 billion renovation of the palatial headquarters of the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C. He specifically said to Congress that this renovation does not include private elevators to be used by the governors of the Federal Reserve, did not include a private dining room to be used by the governors, did not provide for a roof garden with a panoramic view of Washington, D.C. Yet we now learned that the plan that they have approved, the $2.4 billion plan they approved, includes all of those things, which means that Jerome Powell lied under oath to Congress, and he lied about something material that involves the taxpayers. I was accused of lying to Congress, but I had no motive to lie. No misstatement I made to Congress covered up any underlying crime, nor was it relevant or material. It's a very different situation here. So Bill Pulte, who is the head of the Federal Home Finance Agency, the guy who uncovered the 22-year crime spree of mortgage fraud by New York Attorney General Letitia James, has now called for a congressional investigation into whether Powell lied to Congress. But also, frankly, I think that Congress needs to subpoena Jerome Powell's text messages and his emails to look for political motive in his decision not to cut interest rates now on the American people.
Are you getting what's going on? Are you seeing why I'm saying the creature is under attack? Yeah, because the creature of Jekyll Island, he thought couldn't nothing be done to him. And technically, ain't nobody try to do nothing to the creature. Matter of fact, let's go on over, before we go back to Donald Punk and the creature, let's go on over, for those of you who don't understand anything about the creature, let's go on over to a little bit about the creature. Because you know what drives me is, and this is what like puts a steering wheel back in my back and drive me up a wall, is like everybody act like there's this disconnection between the creepy conspiracy stuff and the reality in which we live in right now. Like there's a disconnection. Like when my girl comes out and she says, Rosine Ball comes out and she says, they're vampires. They drink human blood. Like Roseanne Barr is crazy. Then you got all the evidence in the news of them doing human sacrifices, taking babies, doing that. It's right in front of your face, man. It's there right in front of everybody's face. And everybody's so busy going from news story to news story to news story to news story. This happened today. That happened today. Nobody traces it back to the root and say, oh, let me check this off the list because I'm watching this thing that's been established since this day and time get crumbled and crushed. And then they get disappointed because one thing don't go their way. Yeah. This didn't go my way, so I'm disappointed. You can't get disappointed when you're keeping tracks of the wins and the losses, and the record is 100 wins and 2 losses. So what I'm trying to do for you, baby, is this. I want you to see the win, because all we're doing right now is winning. And this, man, hold on, wait a minute. Now, this is Edward G. Griffin, the man who wrote the book, The Creature of Jekyll Island. And this is him talking about audit in the feds. Now, and when you think about it, the way to destroy this creature, now don't get me wrong, if we go into the spooky ooky side of Jekyll Island, which I'll try and find some stuff on it for you. If you go to the spooky ooky side of Jekyll Island, we just talking about the financial aspect of it. Matter of fact, I'll do that. I'll do that for you. You right there, you're special. I will go get that and bring it to you. And you'll understand that there were sacrifices on the island. There was rituals on the island. There was an altar on the island that somebody went and prayed against and the altar broke. Oh, I'll go get it for you. Don't worry about it. But let's just stay with the financial part for a second so you understand. I've been showing you that there's 2 realms that everything exists in and things function in. There's this natural realm that we call the earth, and then there's the spiritual realm that people do things in this realm to affect this realm. So it goes like this. Oh, here's this thing that I've been working on. Here's this thing I've been working on, and then it joins over here, and then now you got this bigger ball of things. If you've been watching the late night videos like you're supposed to, you ain't got to watch them late in the night. You ain't got to watch them in the dark. You can watch them in the day. But if you're doing that, you understand what I'm saying to you. You heard me? You understand what I'm saying to you? Hold on.
System, which is that it is an appearance of the 4th kind, something which is not and yet appears to be. When I did my research on this topic, I came to the conclusion, which may startle you folks here, that the Federal Reserve System does not need to be audited. It needs to be abolished. And the reason I say that is because I'm sure that if they audited the Federal Reserve System, they would find out that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. There's no secret there. There's no shenanigan going on behind the scenes. It's all out in the open. If we'll just study the Federal Reserve System on the basis of what we know already, if we'll read their literature, if we'll dig into the history, we find out that it's one of the greatest scams of all history. Out on the surface, it doesn't need an audit. An audit, I'm sure, would merely delay the process for a couple of years, give the American people the false impression that something is being done about this problem, and at the end of 2 years they'd say, well, the books are clean. I came to the conclusion that the Federal Reserve needed to be abolished for 7 reasons, actually, and I'd like to read them for you now. I've stated them in rather concise terms. Hopefully they'll have some shock value, so you can remember them. And here they are. First of all, it is incapable of accomplishing its stated objectives. 2, it is a cartel operating against the public interest. 3, It is the supreme instrument of usury. 4, it generates our most unfair tax. 5, it encourages war. 6, it destabilizes the economy. And 7, it is an instrument of totalitarianism. Now, I don't know what you think about those 7 points. I know that a lot of you are totally in agreement with it. I can tell by your reaction. I trust that there are some skeptics here tonight. I hope there are. Otherwise, I feel like the minister talking to the choir. Usually there are skeptics in my audience, and frankly, those are the ones I'm most interested in talking to.
Now, that was the gentleman who wrote the book, The Creature of Jekyll Island, calling for the creature to be not just audited, but destroyed. And when you see it playing out in front of you, if you don't have an appreciation for historically those type of things, you haven't read those type of books, you haven't done that type of study, you don't understand the importance of it, you don't understand the significance of it. So now we switch it back to Donald, then I'm going to go get you your creepy, spooky stuff. You know what I'm saying? But so you'll understand what actually happened at the damn island. You know what I'm saying? People's like, oh, they just did this or no. There was a whole bunch of crazy crap happened on the island. But I want to get into Donald and Jerome. Now, where we left off was, it was Jerome kind of looking crazy right up at this point. Let me see if we can find his head. You notice his demeanor. Let's start right here. We're going to start right here with Donald Point saying, get over here. Like Sub-Zero or Scorpion. Get over here. Let's start right there.
And we're just taking a look at what's happening. And it's a tough construction job. They're building basements where they didn't exist or expanding them, and a lot of very expensive work. There's no question about it. And Tim has been with me for a long time, and you're in charge of the committee.
Indeed. One of the reasons why we wanted to see it was the overruns of the expenses. We wanted to figure out why.
Yeah. So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about $3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1,
3.2.
This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But
So
it's not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening, and it's got a long way. Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them, but we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use. But no, we don't. We expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
Nice to take these off every once in a while when we're not under too much danger. So, any questions?
Mr. President, does the issue give you any?
As a real estate developer, what would you do with a project manager who would be over budget?
Generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire him.
Do you think this issue, Mr. President, gives you cause to do that?
Well, I'm here just really with the chairman. He's showing us around, showing us the work. And so I don't want to get that. I don't want to be personal. I just would like to see it get finished. And in many ways, it's too bad it started. But it did start. And it's been under construction for a long time. It's going to be a real long time because it looks like it's got a long way to go.
Yes, sir.
So,
Mr. President, are there things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. Other than that, what can I tell you? The country's doing really well. I just briefed the chairman on the deal we made with Japan. Japan is putting up $550 billion in order to lower their tariffs a little bit.
And so what we're witnessing right here is a pressure campaign on Jerome Powell. When you understand that Jerome Powell lied to Congress and lied on oath, and then Donald goes and says, okay, well, you're at $3.1 billion. And he says, well, no, you're counting in the other building. No, that other building is a part of this project. you're at 3 point. Well, the other building is finished. No. It was wrapped into this project. It's that building plus other buildings. You're over budget. And so we're seeing him put pressure on Jerome Powell, not only just for interest rates, but also because Jerome Powell need to go. He appointed Jerome Powell, and Jerome Powell wanted to fight him. But that's what the damn creature is. The creature of Jekyll Island thinks it's a permanent entity. Remember, people say, well, the Federal Reserve doesn't have anybody that has oversight on it, right? Remember all those things? And so now this is him directly taking on the creature of Jekyll Island. Now watch this. Let's just go to the freaky, stupid stuff that they do. Hold on. Now, in order for us to get into the spooky, oogie, kooky stuff, we got to know about a man named Tim Bentz. Tim Bentz was an intercessory prayer person who came out of the Middle East and was sent by the Lord into Jekyll Island outside of the lake in Georgia because he was told there was a Canaanite child sacrifice altar there. Same as the Canaanite altars that the Lord had him praying against in the Middle East. And when I tell you guys over and over and over, everything is spiritual. People be like, oh, don't want to. You believe in the fairy tale God in the sky. Shut up. I'm just proving it over and 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 over again. So the deal on Jekyll Island to sell America, I think it was 1910 that they did this, to put us into slavery for taxes, to have control and strangulation and domination over us, which is, if you watch the video at midnight in the dog last night, Dr. Henderson was talking about it, about these gods that were strangling us, of Ammon, and it was another tribe. And I said, hey, bro, there's a physical manifestation of giants, and then there's a spiritual manifestation of giants. In the spirit realm, the spirits of giants are called strong men. You're dealing with a strong man. You know what I'm saying? Nonetheless, the point I'm making is this. Get over here. I'm going to tell you. Come over here. I'm going to tell you. The point I'm making is this. You see, we hitting on stuff that nobody hit on as it relates to the news every day. Someone needs you to hit the like button because I put in the work. And you got to understand, while I'm putting in the work, YouTube is sitting there saying, oh, we're going to copyright this. We're going to copyright that. Oh, that music is not yours. But I'm putting in the work, baby, so hit the like button. Now, we're going to listen to some of this conversation between Tim Bentz and Rob Skiba. Now, Rob Skiba was a dog. Tim Bentz is still alive. And if I'm not mistaken, somebody in my network has already interviewed Tim Bentz. I don't think they did an interview about this. But if push comes to shove, if y'all want to, I'll reach out to Tim Bentz, and I'll bring Tim Bentz on, and we'll go into it. But you're going to have to tell me you want it, and you're going to have to watch it. I'm not going to just do it just to do it, because the last time I did it, and I told you guys, hey, Doug Waters, will you get Steve Quayle? I got Steve Quayle, got 10,000 views. 10,000 views. And I was like, I went through all this trouble. 10,000 views. Nobody wanted to watch it. Matter of fact, I'm going to re-upload that. Again, let me see if I can get some more views. All right, I got distracted. So, now this is audio. So I can't do nothing for you. If you need to see something, you know what I'm saying, then I don't know what to tell you. But you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen.
And at one time when it was functioning in the 1900s up to the 20s and 30s, some say 1/3, some say 2/3 of the world's wealth would vacation on that island. Mm-hmm. It was the highest conglomeration of wealth in a single place very often anywhere in the world back in the turn of the century. So it just seems like a little island that's not anything significant at all now, but it's amazing to see the financial side of the history of that spot. And so I'm sitting there looking at some of the things that he's telling, and just thinking about some of the things he's telling me. We went out and walked around, and he showed me some of the cottages that had been restored, and the club itself, and the tennis courts, and they had a pier where the boats would come up, and he's just kind of showing me the grounds, and then we go to the museum. And he's talking a lot about the financial stuff and the guys that built it, and each cottage was marked and named. Some of them had been restored. Some of them didn't exist anymore, but they had like a sign that this is where this one was, and that one was built by J.P. Morgan. That one was Rockefeller's, and that one was just they had each one of them named. Well, they're all kind of native names, and then they're all got some kind of plaque on who the financial mogul was that had built them, and they're not really elaborate, luxurious mansions. They're just simple cottages for the most part, which was kind of interesting to know that the richest people in the world built them, and they were very low-key and almost like a cabin in the woods instead of a luxurious house like you'd expect. And they all had Indian names. So I started asking him about the Indian history of the island, and he lit up. He just was like, that's what he really wanted to talk about because he loved the Indian history. And so he takes me back to the museum, and he said, we got a lot of stuff on the Indians. He said this was actually like the government main community for a tribe of Indians that don't exist anymore. That tribe was called the Timucas. And I said, well, that's interesting. My name's Tim. And anyway, I didn't know anything about the Timucas. I'm from Oklahoma. I've learned a lot of native history, and I have some native bloodline, but I did not know anything about the Timucas. So I just asked him, please tell me everything that you can tell me about them. There's something about the natives that I feel like I need to know. So he said, well, the Jekyll Island Club was actually built on top of everything that the Indians had. So they just kind of wiped the village out and built the club on top of it. So wherever the chief's house was, there was a cottage now. Wherever the council house was, there was now the Jekyll Island Hotel. And he said everything that's built and visible today is actually sitting right on top of something that was significant in the Indian village when it existed. So he said the fact that this whole place had to go into ruins and then be rebuilt and become an archaeological state park, he said it actually helped us identify the native history because the club itself had almost erased that. And so I said, well, let's look at the museum. I want to see some of the Indian stuff. So we're looking at arrowheads and spear tips and, just artifacts that they had found and pottery shards and things and seashells that they had had. And he showed me all their stuff in the museum. He shows me some fragments of a weapon that was like an unusual bow. And when I say unusual, I mean that it was like a double curved bow. And that was a very unusual shape of a bow for a native tribe. I had never seen that shape before with an American Indian tribe. And I've seen a lot of bows and arrows. So I asked him, I said, this seems unusual. I've not seen this before. In Oklahoma, every native tribe, the bows would look like a single bow or just a single curve. I said, this is quite extraordinary, especially as far back as this tribe was. So he said, yeah, we found a lot of weapon-type artifacts that we've not seen with other tribes. And I said, well, how do you know these were Native Americans? Maybe they were from somewhere else. He said, oh, no. They were the Timucas because they're well established along the Florida and Georgia coast, and he said we got a lot of stuff in 3 or 4 states about them, and they were quite prolific at one time. So he said, we know they're Native Americans. I said, well, all right, what else you got? He said, well, we got some skeletons. He said, you want to see the bones? And I said, well, yeah. That sounds, don't get to see a skeleton very often. I said, are they where we can actually see them, or are they buried? He said, no, they're visible. So they had a burial site that they had been very respectful for when they built the museum. When they found a burial site, they didn't move the bones. They left them where they were, and they just uncovered them to where they were visible, and then they built the museum on top of them. They did basically the same thing with the museum that the Jekyll Island guys had done with their houses. They put a piece of plexiglass over the burial site so you could see it, but they were still trying to respect where the bones were and not move them. And so I'm looking at 4 skeletons of the Mupa chiefs. And they knew they were chiefs just from different things that were buried with them. So all of a sudden I look and I realize, man, these guys are really tall. And I commented to the guy that, how tall are these guys? They look unusually large. And he said, yeah, they're all about 8 or 8.5 foot tall. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem like a normal Native American, especially the tribes that I'm familiar with.
I'm going to pause it right here and I'm going to say this. Damn giants. Giants. Jekyll Island was a place inhabited by giants. And there was an altar there where giants were sacrificing people. Giants. Now, I'm going to let this keep going, but I just want to make the point that what I've been saying to you was true. We're still dealing with the giants in multiple ways. In multiple ways. So what do you think happened when they went there and built all these cottages? All these elite people built these cottages on this place where they knew there were sacrifices made and there was giants in those lands. The hell you think they was doing? Where you think they got the power, the ideas, and the concepts to even do the Federal Reserve Bank? Huh, bruh? Woody? But let them keep on going.
He said all the Timucas were unusually tall, even the women. And he said we found other skeletons and parts of bones out in the grounds. And he said we've got pretty good evidence that nearly all of them were extraordinarily tall. And I said, well, how do you explain that in relation to other tribes on the Atlantic coast who were not? He said, I don't know. It is an unusual anomaly. He said, oh, by the way, I've got a painting that you might want to see. It's actually the copy of the original. We've got it under lock and key. But he said, I got a painting that actually shows the Indians from a group of French colonists that came to the United States before it was the U.S. This was right after Columbus. He said it was the first colony of French folks that came over to try to establish a colony on the coast. He said they landed in Jekyll Island, and they had some interaction with these Indians, and then they got so appalled by what they saw and witnessed that they fled at night and ended up in St. Augustine, Florida, and established that city. So I said, were they the Huguenots who were the French group that established St. Augustine? He said, yes. I said, well, I'd like to see that painting then. So he pulls that out. I'm looking at it, and it shows the Indians in all their regalia, and they're dancing around and having some kind of ceremony, and it's got the fire, and it's a typical, either they're having a party or they're having a war scene, and it has some things with the weapons. So I said, gosh, this has got some weapons in it that clearly validates the archaeology that they found. And then I see an altar. And I'm going, I don't know of a Native American tribe anywhere in the country. I know some that had log houses or high places or worshipped, nature in some way, or had totem poles or that kind of stuff. But this one has a stone altar, and it looks a whole lot like the one that I had dealt with in the Middle East. And I'm looking at the picture, and I'm going, is this an altar? Is this stone like something they're sacrificing on? Because this guy's holding babies in his hands in this picture. He said, yeah, they're cutting those babies, they're hacking those babies up in that painting. And so when you look at the details, 2 of the shamans or chiefs are holding a baby up by the ankles, and they're whacking their heads off and spilling the blood on this altar. I said, are you sure this is Native Americans and not some kind of colony that came from over there? At that point, then I thought, I believe this is why I'm here. I needed to see this and hear about this. At this point, I'm not that concerned about the financial stuff anymore. I'm wanting to know, where is this altar?
Now, the rest of this you can find anywhere on the internet for yourself. The point I wanted to make to you, ladies and gentlemen, is it's all the same game. Now, if you do your research, you're going to find out that it was a Canaanite altar that was there. And if you do your research, you watch my videos before seeing, 60 Minutes flagged it, you realize that Anderson Cooper and Noah Havari went to a Canaanite altar and did a live interview from a Canaanite altar where they had vessels where they would sacrifice little ones. It's the sons of Cain, man. Over and 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 over again. And so for those of you who turn on the news and go from breaking news to breaking news to breaking news to breaking news, I'm up on the news. Yeah, you're up on part of the news, but you ain't up on the whole news. And that brings me right back to the very beginning of what I was saying. Because, you know, sometimes you got to go around the corner to get to where you're going. And then a lot of times you got to use what you got to get what you want. You got to use what you got to get what you want. So when you see this in the news and you see Donald smacking the piss out of the Fed chair on the back, you see his eyes look jet black right there. Pupillated, diable, you know, look at Powell's eyes. Look at him. Damn demons is what they all is. And everybody upset over Epstein. No, Donald. Your messaging was bad on that. You let them play you. And Donald, I'm going to tell you something. You need to get rid of Pam Bondi. That trick played you, and she's still playing you. I don't know what kind of nookie she got. She gave you some of that nookie, but you know how it is. If she gave you some of that nookie, you need to leave that cookie alone because she's trying to destroy you. But on to this point, that man right there on that right-hand side, now you know what he's standing next to and what that man represents. The base core of what he represents is those people who did that thing on that island, and you know they did the same thing them other people did. Yeah, why else you gonna just build a cottage on the island? You don't build a whole bunch of mansions. Let me build a few cottages. So we can come here and do this, and then we go on about our business. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? You get it? All right, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. I'll see y'all later.